return all your assignments to me except the one that was done on screen, because I have a copy. Remember, you have to give back all the things that were marked to me at the end of the year with your assignments. No, I'm not stressed about not getting it today.
I'm just trying to remember where it is.
No, I know, everybody goes into panic stations. And I blame Colleen, but I know she told you that you needed to keep everything. So.
Well, we had this exact same issue last semester.
Yeah. Can we submit everything in one folder?
Absolutely, I'm very happy to get that.
So we'll have the final big assignment first,
Yes.
then with the others at the back.
And I can warn Merle, and then what she does is she ticks them. As she gets everything in, she ticks them off your. Yeah, you might sign to say you've handed all of that in. But I think that is the best way to do it, because you're going to have to get everything together for all 2 or 3 or whatever things it is. Okay. I don't know how your long essays, whatever they're called, research essays. Okay. Do you do coursework for those?
Last semester we did.
Yeah.
Okay, so you'll have to hand that in as well. Okay. And I want even those little things that I was editing initially, do you remember? Yeah. And I said to you, I'm not sure if I'll count them in, but if it's a matter of you being bumped up to a next symbol or whatever, I'll definitely use it. Okay. So, yeah. Okay, so. All right, does anybody want to see the mark? Would anybody like to have the marks breakdown while we're discussing things? Okay. You sure? Have you looked at it enough? Okay. Anybody else? I made extra copies for today.
Yeah.
I just need one. So will you share there?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's just kind of copy.
Last week.
So listen, what I need is not scans or photocopies. I need the originals.
Okay, that's fine.
And another thing you need to do, if you did not supply me with a declaration for, and I've written often there, and okay. If you didn't supply me with a declaration, you need to, even if it's retrospective, okay. So they can go to the external looking like brilliant. Okay. All right. Any questions from your reading?
From the reading.
From
Or
the
church?
assignment.
From your reading for the big assignment?
Oh,
Okay.
I have a few questions.
Yes, all right. Shall we start with the questions? I've got an announcement to make about it.
So
And it's related to the marks. Okay.
you asked for an assessment of the manuscript before
Yeah.
edit.
Yeah.
So is that what we did for that first Kid on Mars thing, where we write a letter?
Yes, but I want you to look at it even more closely from the point of view of an editor.
Okay.
Okay, so let's say you were going to, okay, you're not doing that, but to guide you, a good idea would be to say, I'm handing this manuscript over to a freelance editor. What do I tell them? That'll give you good guidelines on how you should proceed with that part of the assignment. Okay. Yes? You looking confused? Yes? No? I don't want any confusion.
So we don't have to do it in a letter format or anything?
No. Just write assessment and hand it in as part of your
So like just
assignment.
a paragraph or two.
I would say, because it is a manuscript that's got several issues, I would say a good 2/3 of a page, I would say. Without waffling. you don't have anything else to say, don't waffle. Just stop where you stop. Okay, but, all right. 2/3 of a page isn't a lot, eh? There's so much to write. Okay, so that takes us to,
Next question.
yes, all right. We can go with your questions, that's fine.
Sorry, do you,
I was
do you
going to
want?
go to something
Oh,
else.
no, go ahead. Sorry, so you can.
But it's good.
Okay, you've got all your questions sitting there, right?
Yes, they're already.
So, okay, so let's take it from her question. What is wrong with the manuscript? What are some of the problems? You're going to help each other in this thing. It's a very tough assignment to do at the end of a course in which you've done short assignments to now be doing something much longer.
I think some sentence doesn't make sense. I think it's gonna need rewriting.
Okay, what doesn't make sense? Does it not make sense, or is it just
But
needing to be rewritten to be
Yeah.
clear?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. There could be a couple of things that don't make sense. What would you do with them? You either research around it and find what's not there, or
Present them in a.
you raise a query with the author. Okay. Right? Okay? Anything else?
I think the illustrations and figures make no sense
Okay.
at all.
All right.
I don't know why they even.
Okay. Do you want to comment on the illustration specifically?
Well, just the way that it, like, they incorrectly, like, done, like it said, the paragraph talks about one thing and then it asks for a picture of another, so it makes no sense.
Okay.
Sometimes I think the images aren't exactly completely relevant to the paragraph. You know, there needs to be a change in what exactly is going to be
I don't think it's
focused on.
that bad, the artwork brief. Look, okay, so you've got to find more artwork. You've got to suggest more artwork because we said that they haven't made full use of what they could have done. Okay, they haven't made full use. So I've brought you 2 examples of the kind of look for the book. Okay, could be a bit smaller, but you see how many things are illustrated. Okay, so that's the kind of thing. It's that kind of reference book. Here also. Okay, a nice blend of drawings and photographs and nice big maps. Okay, so not a pretty little map that you can hardly see. Stuff like this. And this is the size I'm thinking of, more or less. Okay, so some sections are very beautifully illustrated, for example. But there isn't like a section like that in your assignment. Nothing. It's not like there's a whole long list of fish or birds or whatever. Okay, that might be in another section, but not in the section that you've got. But you see that it's densely illustrated, generously illustrated. Okay, and expensive. And this book's actually on print because of that now. It should have had a. It should actually have had a new edition coming out. This is another one. This is a scientific one, so it's obviously very detailed, but you see, okay, nothing is spared in the description. Okay, so maybe if you're illustrating fishing, what they use, the methods they use for fishing, dangerous methods, the ones that are likely to deplete the fish. Maybe you want to go quite technical and show it in a decent size so all the meanings are clear. Okay, so you're going to look for reference, and while you're looking for references, you may get ideas. All these books are like that, especially where a process is explained. Okay, so we don't have loads of processes, but okay, like what, there is a process in there. There's several processes actually. There's the process of the currents moving around the whole world. Okay, the great big conveyor belt, that's a process. The way all the oceans move around. So you will have seen that the references that are supplied for those are really min, and they're not good.
I'm
Okay.
a little unsure about the word like reference. Now, would that be
The
exactly
reference
in the...
is,
That's
Visual
just in the artwork brief, not in the manuscript where you say AW figure.
no, that's just mentioning it and make sure it's got a number and make sure it's got a number. And did you see that I sent you the artwork brief, the
Yeah.
thing?
Yes, so,
Okay, and
so
I
the
think
reference
that's fully
goes
there.
just in the artwork.
Yeah, yeah. What I'm interested in, because unless, okay, so what some people like to do when they do the artwork brief is they put in another column, or they put it under the description. The description has normally got the widest column, right? And what some people do is they'll actually say caption, and they'll put it there. The finalized caption. Okay, as it should be. But it's fine to have it in the manuscript, because it's partly already done for you, so, okay. Okay, so captions have got to make sense, and they've all got to have a full stop, because that's the style. And your artwork numbering is going to change as you bring in more artwork. So a reference is exactly this. You might make photocopies of, I don't know, this page and say, okay, there's no end. But photocopies or things off the internet. Okay, it doesn't have to be in color. If it's a hassle for you to print in color, don't expect that. I'm not going to take marks off. It's not a school project. Okay, I'll be happy to just see a good depiction of what I'm wanting. So the current's not all squashed up, the name's not. Do you know what I'm saying? Something that's, yeah? Okay.
Will you be penalized if you don't put examples?
Yes, you
physical?
will. I did ask you to supply a few more.
Okay.
Okay.
No, I mean like
I want you
physical
to
pictures.
think visually. Yes, I would.
Yeah,
What?
that was the
Actual
question I had.
pictures.
I mean actual pictures. So if you say I want, you know, a big map of the currents,
Yes.
and then you don't put a picture of something that
No, I
you
would
want.
like you to give a good example
Okay.
for the cartographer. Okay.
Okay.
Alright. What some people do is they split up the artwork. They'll go photographs. So they'll insert like a division in the table. Or they'll supply 4 different tables, smaller tables. Okay. So they'll say photographs, photographic artwork, drawings, and then computer generated artwork, and maps, cartography. Okay. I don't expect that. I'm just telling you now that some people work like that, and it depends on who's in charge of your artwork and the way they like to work and how long this thing is. If you think that this is just one chapter of many, you're going to end up with a very long artwork brief for every chapter. So maybe what should happen is that for the whole book, you might want to have all the photographs together, all the drawings together, all the pie charts and whatever together, and all the maps. Can you see that for that it works better to actually split your artwork brief into 4. Okay, this is just methodology for you in terms of working. Okay, so guys, you can see that this just absolutely doesn't cut it.
Is that supposed to be the artwork brief?
That's a reference.
The visual reference.
Oh, visual reference. Yes, thank you. Maybe if you say visual reference. Reference, this reference. This is a great big conveyor belt. Okay? Alright.
Do we have to use those images?
No, that's the point.
Okay,
The
oh no,
authors-
I'm just
Okay,
because
what
I
does
was a
the
little
scenario say? No, good questions. They're great questions. I keep on going, oh my God, I haven't thought of this being an issue. That's why you hear my tone of, oh my God.
No, because they're just,
Okay.
some of them are really bad. It kind of
They're
feels
terrible.
like I just kind of want to rip
Okay,
the back
so
off.
I gave you a scenario where the authors are overworked
Yeah.
and abandoned the glossary, and it's quite obvious. And I said also they didn't really do their best when it came to the artwork brief, which is an understatement, okay? But in my working life, I've had lots of things like this. You think I'm not just exaggerating it for the assignments. That's how you get things in. So the first one doesn't cut it. The second one doesn't cut it. It's just to give you an idea of what you should be looking for. The third one is not bad because it's related to the dangerous coastline. The little one with all the waves.
No.
Okay, that one.
What do you
Okay,
call-
so it shows you a coastline that is rough and dangerous. So it's not bad, okay? Something similar. Okay, what about the little bubble creature? Bubble snail. Bubble raft snail.
You can't see anything in the first one.
Okay, but
Just
you
see
can see it
bubbles.
on the things that I sent you.
Oh, can you?
Because it's in color. So
Oh.
the one that I sent you, the electronic files, they are in
Oh.
color. There you go. You can see
Okay,
it
that
quite
makes a lot
nicely.
more sense.
Okay, and the one underneath is one of its eating. It's actually feeding off a... No. The snail is the creature.
Is-
The snail is the thing that goes along the oceans. It's an amazing creature.
It's feeding off an algae thing.
yeah, what is it, algae?
No, it's feeding off a blue bottle.
Oh.
Off a Portuguese man of war, as they're called. Okay, and it describes it in the text, so you should be able to see that. Okay. The next one is a fishing. Okay. Very big net with lots of fish, so it does tie in nicely with the description of overfished oceans and how we need to look after the oceans. So that's good, but
Is it the same net?
is it the right net? Okay. Is it actually a purse net? Okay. And if it isn't, could you use it? Could you slot it in? Okay. Is it a purse se net or is it a something else net? Okay. And then that oil rig is fine. You just need to ascertain whether it is the kind that's off our shores or if it comes from somewhere else. So, you know, you need to... It's nice and bright, and remember that it will be in colour in the book. Okay, all the artwork is for colour in the artwork brief. Okay. Okay, so what else is wrong with this thing?
So I had a question
Yes.
concerning house style.
Okay, we'll get to that now. Come on, guys, how many of you have read this thing? You've got to be more
I think-
critical.
I think not enough of the. I mean, I know you say that there isn't. The glossary was abandoned halfway through, but it's not done enough.
No.
Yeah.
So, okay, so
That's an issue.
definitely glossary will. Okay, we've done artwork, what else? What about the sequence of the materials?
Yeah, the sequences.
Okay, if you look at your marks, you do have some marks for structural edit, which means there's your answer, that some structural work has got to be done. And sometimes it can be as simple as the artwork not being close to its text, and sometimes it can be as bad as repetition. So some of the info may be repeated. Okay. The language we've said needs to be simplified in places. Eh?
Mm.
I would say quite a few places. Okay.
Alright, we're going for 7th to 9th graders, is that right?
Well, yes, in our terms.
Okay.
So, okay. All right. Do you want to move on to there are other things, but I don't want to spoon feed you.
Right.
I just want you. I want you to help each other out. Okay.
If we choose the hard copy,
Yes.
we don't have to do any proofreading. Simple.
No.
No, it's
no.
just.
Just write your corrections.
Okay.
And if you don't have enough space, say PTO and write it on the back. That's why I said you print it double space so that you've got enough space and one side only so you can actually do little additions on the back. I'm not looking for like super neatness. Okay. I'm also not looking for super disgusting, but okay. So obviously neatness is important, but I mean don't stress about these things. Okay. PTO and on the next page is fine. Okay. You may want to do that. Sometimes it's easier to just rewrite text that is written at too high a level. You write it down. Okay. You should have 2 copies, one for a rough and then one where you do your finals. Okay, yes.
And I just wanted to clarify the hierarchical headings and the
Yeah.
flagship
Yeah.
headings.
Okay, so guys, we're going to do the hierarchical headings and the flagship headings now. I'll tell you what, if you look at the marks, have I allocated anything for, haven't, eh? Okay, so even though in the assignment I said I wanted you to do the markup, once I actually really worked through the thing in preparation for today, I decided, you know what, it's just too much. And it's not that related to what we did before, okay? So we're going to work through it now. You can put it in, just to finalize it. Okay, so that's one thing, yes, that you have to do, because actually you've got more than enough to do in this assignment. So I hope that's good news to you all. Okay. Okay, other questions?
I didn't understand in the house guide the sun and moon as entities and then as not entities, and then in the text I'm not actually sure
Okay.
in which way they are speaking of
Okay.
them.
Anybody want to venture an opinion? Come on,
Because from
don't go.
because when I read it I would have made everything lowercase.
Okay. So it's that kind of text, right? Dealing with physical features of the earth and the universe. Okay. So traditionally, earth, moon, and sun do have capitals. If you say the sun was shining nicely today, it was such a relief after all the rain, then it's just the sun, lowercase, okay. But in the style and for that kind of a book, they need to all be caps. So steady, see.
For this kind.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what am I asking you to do? Pure consistency, that's all. Easy peasy. And that's what basically the house style is about. Easy peasy consistency. Okay.
So when they say the earth's, you want earth's cap.
Yeah, that's the style.
It just seems so odd to me.
It doesn't really.
I don't know, yeah. It's like that the debate with God being capitalized and not being capitalized.
It's slightly different.
Well, I mean, it's just, I thought that's what you meant, you know, as
No.
that you're like as entities, you know, like
Yeah.
the sun guides me
Yeah.
as like a,
Yes. But it's a good question.
but yeah.
Because house styles that are clear to one person are not always clear to the person trying to apply them.
Mm.
There's quite a lot of language work. Did you notice there are quite a few errors?
Mm.
What sorts of errors are there that you need to look out for?
Will you say subject-verb agreement?
Yeah.
But I didn't have time to research that, so would you
Okay.
just explain a little bit?
So plural subject, plural verb,
Oh, okay.
singular subject, singular verb. And there are lots of errors in there.
Oh, yes.
And a lot of authors do struggle with those because they might be writing in English and be originally Afrikaans speaking or... Okay, so Afrikaans speaking people are the ones who are going to make the most mistakes. Usually. Okay. Punctuation, what would you look out for? Inconsistent use of full stop? Commas that are not required? Commas that split up a sentence in the middle that cause you to pause, like breaks on, you don't know why.
I think there's a lot of semicolons, which I
Yes.
think is not always used correctly, and also sometimes I think the semicolon is a bit too makes the sentence too complicated for the reading targets.
Could be. So what could you do with these sentences?
I would
Break
split
them up.
them and make them.
Break them up. And how would you break them up? Because they're obviously related in a long sequence. Semicolon means this and that, and they're all equally important, right? It's not like you've got a colon, but even with a colon, you can have a whole list of sequences. How else can you present it then? Yes, yes.
You suggest drawings and that as well.
When the text is very long.
Yeah, like, I think, was it, or maybe that's Roday's assignment that I'm giving.
No, it is part of this suggestion that you can use. I wouldn't say lots, but I would say when it gets wordy. Okay, so you want to try and get rid of just too many words that aren't needed. Yes? It's easy peasy, this exam.
If you say so.
Wilson, what is your question? You're just tired. You are. I'm also tired. We'll have to pull through. Okay. Are there any, what about some of the glossing? Do you think some of the glossing might not be? Do you gloss what you've explained?
No.
Do you gloss what you define? No. What do you gloss?
Words that aren't, I would think words that aren't explained in the text because they are not exactly relevant to the subject of teaching. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah, but if they're complicated, can you replace them? Can you replace them by an easier word?
Preferably.
And sometimes you can't. Okay, because they are specific. So then you should gloss them and explain them. Okay, but I've only asked for 10, and then for the master students have got more of a struggle with the 15 there. Or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe it's easier to do more. I don't think so, though. Please remember everything we discussed about the glossary entries. Okay? And these things that have been flashing around for artwork and the prominence of the artwork in this kind of book, etc., etc. Actually very useful in terms of finding simple. So if you go, I don't know how many of you have got a local library that you can pop in on. It's quite nice sometimes to get away from your own house or room and to actually go to the library. If you look at the stuff for the kids, the scientific things, you get lots of useful stuff there. Sometimes you get just the definition that you're looking for. And remember, I also said to you, look at teachers' material on the internet, the things that teachers all over the world have written for each other. They often come up with something good. What sorts of dictionaries? Students, learners' dictionaries. Okay. So and I said to you, when I do glossaries, I usually use several sources just for the one. And I kind of combine them, so it's a nice complete thing, but not, not unnecessary. Yeah.
You have to say where we got the definition from.
So you'd like for us to create our own, maybe?
Yes, create your own. I trust you to just get on with it and create your own. I think it just gets too involved. There's only so much work that one can do. Okay. I haven't asked you to do a letter to the typesetter or anything like that, because it's already been. Okay. What about the there's something particularly awful in this chapter, and that is the way that the authors have written the bullet points. Okay, anything you've got to say about use of bullets? They're on page 2.
It's on page 2. Yeah. Some have sentences, others just words.
Yeah, some are sentences, some are just words. Some have the word followed by a definition, some have just a word. Okay, I gave you a star for that. Okay.
You say you gave us a style?
In the style sheet, yeah, in your house style that I gave you. I've given you a particular style to apply.
It
I'm
says
not sure
all
if I've
the
received
capital
that
letters.
Yes.
Yeah,
Capital letters in the for the beginning of each sentence,
Yes.
and no full stops, I think, unless
Unless
it is a full sentence with a subject verb.
a full sentence followed by another full sentence.
Oh,
There are
okay.
two sentences
Two
involved.
needs two
I don't want
sentences.
any full stops, even if it's a full sentence. Okay.
So, question.
But
So
yes.
it's over here, it's in our sections. The one that you gave us that's got everything we have to do, and then it says checklist used to store triggers and copy and style edit, which is our style.
Copy and
Yes,
style
it is
edit.
triggers.
Point 3.
Oh.
Okay.
So is this the
Okay, so
extent
this
of
is
our
the style
house?
guide. Style
Is this
guide.
the extent of our house sheet? The number?
Yeah.
Okay.
It
That was
says
my
here
question.
lists.
Yeah,
All
what is the style
items begin with a capital, no punctuation after any item unless you are dealing with a list of instructions. If entries are in two
Okay,
parts,
okay.
use a full
Big
full
help,
stop.
big help, big help. Thanks.
Okay, so read through those triggers. Okay. Shorten them this year because they're getting too long. But do read through them and read through them again. And then you start doing your work on another day, read through them again. These are just to get you on track, okay, and to make sure that you're not overlooking important things.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay, spellings, watch out. So to go back to the bulleted points, if you're going to create your own, please make sure you don't do them like this. Okay? Would you combine, I mean, they don't have parallel structure, the items. Remember the whole discussion we had about parallel structure in bullet points? Remember? They all start with keeping, happening, doing, okay, either they're all present participles or they're all infinitives: to run, to hide, to skip, to see, to look.
So keep parallel
Structure.
okay.
Okay, and that's what I've been explaining, either all in the present participle or all in, okay.
Okay. So consistency.
Or just like a full sentence, it can be different, but if they're all like a full, complete sentence, it might work. It depends on your introductory words. Okay. So I was looking at this and I was wondering, now, would I actually combine these two? Because actually, they're two lists more or less about the same thing, if you look.
Yeah, currents are
Okay.
different and also differ.
Yeah, but if you combine them, then you're going to end up with quite a long list, right? Do they all need to be two sentences long, two bits long if some of them are 2 bits long? Length, full stop, some are thousands of kilometres long. That's 2 parts, okay? Width, others are as wide as 200 kilometres one. Okay. And then later you've got direction with nothing, speed with nothing.
But what does that have to do with the list being too long if you combine it?
No, I've got moved on to something else now because I didn't get an answer. I was going to come back to it. Okay.
Well, I think you could do longer sentences because, like, the temperature of the areas they flow from could go with temperature, how warm or cold they are.
Yes.
So maybe.
Yes. Okay.
So
Good.
that actually maybe the second list seems like an explanation a bit of the first list.
But not entirely.
Not entirely.
Okay. So the logic isn't good here. So you need to think, is it not going to end up as a long list? And if so, can you ask the authors for extra information? Okay, so don't forget, sometimes the information is missing. So you could say, so you talk about the length and the width and the depth, but you don't get any measurements. Then direction and speed, so you could say some of them run at like 100 kilometers an hour and others at 300 kilometers an hour. Okay, which isn't the case. But do you know what I'm saying? I mean, you need to make up your mind now, how are you going to handle this list? So if you find that you can conflate, you can collapse some of them from the first list into some from the second list, then maybe your list isn't too long. But if you can't conflate them, okay. Could you maybe take some out of the bullets and just write them as ordinary text? There's a lot of work to be done on this page, okay? So it's one of the big central aspects of the edit. And the logic of everything. Remember, you're writing this, you want to make sure that this is fine for that age group. And I think they'll be very interested in speed and temperature. Effects on the weather and climates. And the ability to support life on land. Are those related? If I've got a desert climate, yes. Okay, if I've got a lush climate like I've got on the east coast of South Africa, then yes, so they are related. So maybe you want to combine those. The last one in that first list with the first one in the second list. So what I'm trying to point out to you is you're going to have to pore over this and make some decisions to make it work. Okay. Okay, what was my scenario? The authors were enthusiastic.
The one says that he uses terminology that relates to the kids so that they have jokes or something.
Yeah, jokey kind. Okay, now you've got to think about why have I put this?
Because of the audience.
Yeah, because so what? Have you found any bits that are like a little bit maybe not suited? If you look at the breakdown of your marks, you've got something on register. Okay. So is this a jokesy book thing or an encyclopedia? Is it okay in a modern encyclopedia to have jokes? You know, we're more relaxed these days. Anything that struck you as?
Yeah, well, sometimes the use of exclamation marks makes it sound, and like so this is, you know, so.
Okay, what about, let's just have a look right at the beginning, the very first sentence. South Africa's coastline is humongous.
Well, yeah, the humongous.
Okay?
What is the word humongous?
Okay, well that's what I'm talking about, okay. Because this author got a bit carried away. I mean, obviously that talk the talk, you know, the way their students talk the talk.
Who uses the word humongous anymore?
Yeah,
No, a lot of people still use it. And they're dated. Usually you'll find that that kind of person is a bit dated. Okay.
I
So-
use humongous.
Yes. No, people do. Just like they draw maps that are just drawings.
Huge, massive,
Yeah,
big,
same as.
humongous.
Humongous.
It's real.
You're too much of a city slicker. I'm sure that, yeah. Little rural places that use humongous. Okay. This is part of the lesson. Okay, so what I'm saying is, you've got to think about, is this suitable for the kind of book it is? Okay. Do I leave this in or do I replace it by more ordinary talk? Anything else that you might have seen there?
Concerning jokes or
Oh, just considering some of the headings or...
Oh, I think it says different currents for different folk.
Yeah.
And like that doesn't work because it doesn't even sound, current and stroke don't sound remotely the same.
Okay.
It's like a bad
So what
attempt at
would
a
you
pun.
look for? I said to you in the scenario, you make a mental note. When I say you make a mental note, it means you do a double take, but you don't show it. You just remember that once you look at the manuscript. You're not going to say anything to your author, but you might think, okay, this is one of those people who wants to be popular at all costs. Maybe I just must be a little bit careful. Okay, so jokes that fall flat.
Wouldn't you?
Okay.
Well, I would query it and suggest something else. Like,
Yes.
Because obviously I would
course.
never let that go.
No. But if you decide, okay, I don't know what to, so, you know, you want to say, well, but I don't know, it depends. How do you see that author? If you raise it with them, will they be able to come up with something else? Or,
It's like
you know,
come up with
or
something better or take it.
Well, it was just, I think you should suggest always if you don't
Yes.
like it but you're not trying to fix it,
you know,
maybe
say
just
you would take it
suggest.
out. Yeah. And what would you do with that taking out? Would you flag the author?
Yeah.
What would you say? Because remember, you've got to be tactful, and I'm looking
Yeah,
for that kind of helpfulness in your queries for the authors. Remember that your queries can also be comments. Okay, it doesn't all have to be questions. It can be requests. Okay, do you mean this or that?
Yeah.
You haven't talked about, I don't know, the effect of mountains on currents. I don't know, I'm just making it up. I'm just talking nonsense. Okay, can you please supply that information?
But
Or I don't think this joke works very well. It might confuse the learners. Yeah. Do you have another suggestion? Or I think this. Do you like it or not? Okay.
Which?
Or maybe just say, look, you know, in this thing, maybe, you know, it's a different kind of genre from what you used to. Is there anything else that you've noticed that's in the beginning, that you've noticed that maybe it doesn't quite fit there, based on the genre? Genre sounds so terrible in English, I don't know why. Genre. There's a big, big thing on the first page.
I think maybe the title of chapter 2 doesn't quite actually, it just says life along, but we talk about currents as well, so it's
Well, the currents are related to the life.
oh, okay.
Yeah. I think to me life's okay. It's kind of hold all. It works. No, it's later. What do these authors do most of the time? If they've written before, what will they have written? They're teachers. The fact that they're teachers shows in that page. What are they used to writing? This is a different book from what they're used to writing.
maybe they're used to writing lesson plans.
Yeah, you're getting closer. Good. Is this an activities book?
No. Okay.
Seems much more informal.
Oh, with your teacher, measure the distances from.
That's more likely to be a textbook kind of activity, isn't it? And also, have a look. These towns that are mentioned there, where are they on the map of your first artwork? Nowhere to be found. Okay, so either you decide, no, I think that's fine, and I'm going to ask for a map that shows these towns. It is okay. You could say, there are some nerdy ones among the kids who are going to, you know, and some kids love measuring distances, and the map is to scale, and they'll do that. Okay, fine. It's more of an activity, though, than to find out more about. Okay, although it does teach you, what does it teach you? What have we just been saying? That the coastline is long. Okay, it's humongous. All right, so if you're going to add distances along, you're going to see just how long our South African coastline is. So maybe along those lines, if you look at it that way, it is okay as an activity. As a find out more.
Oh,
Okay? So do you see how closely I want you to read the text?
Yeah, very
And the scenario. Okay.
so now I'm a bit confused. Do you suggest having the?
I'm saying it's up to you. Okay. If you leave it in, you've got to do something about the map.
Yeah.
If you decide that it's not okay and you want to get rid of it, what's going to happen? To the numbering of the others, because there are 4 of these features. There's an A, B, C, D.
Oh, is that what? That's an A.
Do you even like the ABCD?
No.
Okay, what would you?
I
What would
thought
you
that
put
was a
there?
markup thing.
No,
Actually.
no. Okay. Yes, exactly. Why do you even need even one or two or three or four? Huh? Because you're going to show it through marker. It's going to look a certain way. Exactly.
So could you just say found out instead of
You've got to think, what have you got to do to get this right, this assignment? I'm glad we're having this. You need to think of your reader, okay? You got your reader, how's it going to work for them? How's it going to look on the page? Is the language okay? Is the information repeated and unnecessary? Is it going to be nice for them? Is there enough artwork? All that kind of stuff. Okay.
And all of our author queries should be listed in a letter to the author. Is that correct?
Yeah. Where you can't solve it, or you think, you know what? Let them give me the ranges of currents. Otherwise, I have to look up 20 different things. So you must be doing research. You must be willing to do research. Do quick research to get facts right, to make sure everything's okay, to check the spellings of things. Okay. But don't worry about, how, okay, that's their thing. They're the experts. There are probably 200 different articles that all give different speeds for the currents. Okay. And one of the amazing things about the Agulhas current is that they've discovered recently, because they didn't have the technology until very recently to measure things. Now that they're able to, they've discovered it's made up of 3 layers. These layers move at different speeds. Some of the layers go back on themselves and go towards the south and the east, and others don't. They're very important because actually they've now realized that they have a lot to do in terms of global warming or prevention of global warming. Okay. So they realize that they actually need to understand the currents. These currents are massive. I mean, people haven't studied them properly. And the fact that they're doing this whole conveyor belt and moving water all over the ocean, I mean, we don't actually understand what's going on and how it's going to affect us. Okay. All right, all the captions need to be fixed, but those are just basic things. Some of them have got to be supplied. There's another heading at the bottom of page 3.
Is it suitable? Is that one of those instances?
It's about rip tides, and you go to the ocean, you've got to be careful, okay?
Yeah, I don't actually, it's not being.
So is this one of those instances?
It's
where
about
we
something that is
question-
strange to you and they propose a danger. Okay. Again, what about the register? Is it appropriate? Is it a good choice? Okay.
Can you speak more to register issues?
No,
What exactly are
I'm
they?
not spoon feeding you. I mean, you can work out that something is either okay or not.
Okay. But when you say register issues, what do you mean?
Is this the right thing for an encyclopedia? Is it within the right register for that kind of work for kids at that age group?
Gotcha.
Okay,
That's enough.
all right. Okay, so register has got to do with, let's make it simple, degree of formality.
Gotcha.
How formal? Informal. That's why the jokey bit comes in and actually rears its head and how does it work or not. Okay. Okay, so look at your headings carefully. You've got a question called, can you top this? Okay, and under that you've got that whole thing about the amazing little purple snails. I love these. These are bubble raft snails. I think they're astounding.
I didn't understand the phrase, can you top this?
Well, meaning like, how amazing is that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what it means. Like, have you got a story that can top this kind of a thing? Okay. Again, is it appropriate? Could you replace it with something else? Can you suggest something else? Okay. So you're going to have to spend a lot of time there looking at the text. Even something like taxonomically speaking. Okay, it could be nice. It's quite nice in a way. Do you want to leave it in or not?
But then again, if you remove some of the jokes or whatever, then it's kind of be consistent
Yes,
throughout.
yes. I agree. So if you think jokes are a good idea, you're going to have to,
Yeah.
you know, either supply your own or say,
Yeah.
well, look, what could you do? If you don't like it, how could you word this for the author?
Which one? Can you top this?
I wouldn't say, yeah. What, hey? No, how do you word your query to the author? It's quite hurtful to say, your jokes are crap.
But maybe is
Get
this
rid
age
of them,
appropriate?
you know.
Yeah, I think many of these jokes will be lost on the kids, maybe
Yeah.
rather.
Yeah,
Is it age appropriate or?
yeah. Stranger danger is normally related to
Right.
sexual
Yeah.
abuse, okay? You know, okay, so how would you word those things in your author's query list, comments list?
Perhaps we
With
should
not much
consider removing the informal or the less formal text.
And then what would you say? Why would you say? You know, because they're so keen on their jokes. Now they get their manuscript back and there's no jokes.
How do you
So
explain
you
that
have to say something about it. So either you fix the jokes, okay, or, and in both cases you'll have to say something.
Just that they're not appropriate for the age group or for the type of book or for the book.
Yeah.
But people
It's
are,
not a
you're kind of,
classroom.
but you're also kind of telling them that they don't know what they're writing and they don't know the age group then. So you have to be very,
But it's just, I think in a classroom, it's a different dialogue. There you're trying to,
then that's what you should say.
yeah, you're trying to relate to the students. And
But
the
who's
book-
going to be using this book? Maybe the teacher, yeah, as an extra teaching aid. Who else in the school? The librarian, if there is a librarian. Okay? So maybe it's not as formal as a school textbook. Or maybe it is. Okay, I don't want to give you all the answers. So, and there aren't easy answers. It is tricky.
Is
To do
there
this.
a right way for this? I mean, or are you just
There's a
looking
right
for
way of speaking to the
oh, to the author. No, I just
That's
meant,
what I'm interested in.
Oh, okay. I meant about the jokes or not jokes. If there's a
No,
right
put it
way.
this way, whatever you decide.
It just must be done well.
I'm not going to go, oh, it's like left in a terrible joke. You know what I mean? I'm not out to, it's not like that kind of edit. It's not like I'm out to get you. I just want to see how you're coping, that you can reason, exactly. Okay, and that you're thinking about these issues. Okay, it doesn't matter what you write, just write it. You could even say, you know, I'm not sure that, no, I like the way you've tried to introduce humor, but actually, you know, we find that this can be tricky. You know, experience has shown us. Yeah, that kind of, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for tactful. I'm looking for letting down with a light bump instead of a heavy one. Okay, you've got a couple of non sequiturs in the text, which means that text comes after other text and it just doesn't follow. Okay. There's a couple of places where you can just cross stuff up. It's just long-winded. It's already been said. Otherwise, take out the bolding where it doesn't belong. Okay. There's lots of words that are bolded that must be unbolded. And then you know that you can just use the proofreading symbol. So I just said to you, you don't need proofreading symbols, but I think that's just...
And for bold, no.
Yeah, but I mean, if you write to me unbold in the margin, in a little circle, that's also fine. Okay. I just want to see that you're thinking. It's not about perfection. This is, if you think of the editing field and how much time we've got. Oops, sorry. Let me just turn this person off. Okay, sorry. Silent.
But the guy was complaining about replies back to, didn't reply, he didn't reply to my question, but when I said, please expect, to send you back, he goes, no worries. So you can reply to that.
Thank you.
I'm learning a lot today.
Any other questions before we do the markup together?
So we have said that these activities we don't have to keep them, but
It's just the first one that's really an issue. The others are kind of okay. Let's just find out more about.
So the word list that we should include.
So again, that's like, it's registered but in a different way. Do you find that kind of content normally in a sort of big picture encyclopedia thing? Maybe you do. Maybe you could say, it doesn't really seem to fit in, but since I don't know what's going on in the other chapters, I'm leaving it in. Maybe you might consider, depending on what's going on in the rest of the book.
and would that be an author query or how
I would
you
make
say
it an author comment. Okay. Because anybody else who's going to deal with the book is going to see your comments, and then your author's going to respond. Okay. So anything that takes you further in the production of the book is a worthwhile comment or question. Okay, so the kinds of things I want to see in the author's list are things that take the book further. It wasn't resolved, but now we're raising it so it can be. I think I've resolved this fine, and I'm telling you about it. But you can comment if you don't like it, Okay. This is a record that will be available to the commissioning editor or the publisher should it be necessary. Okay, so it tells everybody what is still to be sorted and resolved should something happen to me. Okay. All right. So you've got to have that sense from these queries that you are moving the issues along for resolution.
Is there any particular format you would prefer of us doing this, like as it written as opposed to?
No, I think just write it as a letter. Okay, I think I did say that. And I just want to date it, the title of the book, date it. So you're just going to use working title, okay, because it's obviously a hideous title as it stands at the moment, far too long and cumbersome. Okay, but so you've got that, and then
Cover page.
And then, so your queries. Dear author, thank you very much. It was interesting. I learned quite a lot. These are the things I think we need to discuss before we can move to the next stage. I'd also you need to check what I've done and to get back to me about that as well. In the meantime, here are my queries.
and then just as like bullet points.
No, just bullet points is fine. Okay, and if it's a question mark, and if it's a comment, no question mark.
With the glossary, are we sticking with building the
Yeah.
building?
Okay, so now the master students, in terms of the glossary, you need to actually supply an idea of where you want these glossary entries to go. I'm not asking this of the honors students. I just need you to think of how, where. Okay. So if it's this kind of book, here they've got like all the main things, and then they've got like little snippets of information, interesting information. If you don't have this, and I'm not saying this is how your page is going to look, okay? I'm not asking you to come up with a design at all. But I mean, would you like space to be left here? Would you like them, would you like a margin used as a space? This is only for master students, to take it one little step further. Would you like it all to come at the end of a section?
Wouldn't it usually be or could it be at the end of the book?
It could be at the end of the book, but I don't like that because I can tell you that kids don't look. They don't look them up. So a short section maybe, a list at the beginning of the book, but it might end up being so long. I prefer split up, and I prefer close to where it's in the text. Okay, and I think it's important for learning materials that it should be not a long list. If you're going to have a single list, then it should be in the front, and then you'll see how awfully awkward it becomes. Some people might put a glossary in a chapter, and they'll just make that like a box. So you could have it, even you could say, oh, I want this in the middle of the chapter. And then kids refer to it going forward, and kids refer to it going back. Do you know what I'm saying? So as they read forward, they can go to a central point forward, and as they read further on in the chapter, they can go back to a point before. So that's another option. But I do think that broken up and close to the place where it occurs is probably the best place for glossary entries. But think about it. Yeah. Anything else?
When we give it, do you want the rationale also?
Yes, I do. I'd like the rationale. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, what did I say to you before we move on to doing the markup? What did I say to you about asking queries? What did I say about this assignment? And I said it again today. It's not like something to trip you up or a horrible exam. I've said it many times. It's a learning experience. Okay, so I want you to get the most out of putting in all this hard work in terms of your professional life. And it doesn't have to be in this sector of books. It can just be in terms of writing decent reports. How do you illustrate them? What do you choose? Do you explain terms? How do you do that? If it's already defined, does it need to be in the glossary? No, because you don't want glossaries that go on forever. Okay. So you want help, that kind of thing. All right, so I've said that to you all along, and what else did I say about contacting me?
We can.
Yeah.
Right
Can.
now.
How much?
Not too much.
I did not say that. I did not say that. I never said that. Come on, what have I said to you all along?
You can help us as much as we need.
Yes, you need to ask questions. Ask them. If by any chance I find that it's inappropriate, then I can always say no. Okay, but what I'd rather do is say that's a really good query and then share it. Okay, share it with the rest of the class. So I think, oh, that is something that didn't come up in our discussion, and we can do that. And I said something else to you which is very important. I said to you, Sometimes all you need to do is untangle a small query, and then once that's answered, you're actually quite happy to just carry on. You've now on track, and you just say, okay, I've sorted that out, and it could be very, very unimportant. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because everyone's brain is different, so it's whatever gets you going. Okay, so you could just, and often that's what happens. People raise a query with me, and I answer it, and then they go, oh, and then I send out a notice to everybody, anything? Everybody says, no, they're fine, you know? So that's what I mean. It's stupid to actually lose out on this wonderful opportunity of you do all this work. It should be for forever. It will affect the way that you write and you read and you edit for good. Okay, so it shouldn't just be a big, big pain in the butt, although it could be that too. But turn it into something that is going to give you, you know, results for your life. Okay, and that's the kind of thinking I want to see. Okay. Everyone's in despair.
I think we're okay.
You think you're okay?
It's one of those things I think you just need to start.
You need to
Yeah.
start. Good idea.
Definitely.
Yeah, so what else did I say to you? Do it in stages.
And no more than
Do it
16
in
hours.
stages. Okay, so what would you tackle first? I'm just interested to know, would you do artwork first? Okay, why?
Get it out the way.
I think I would do language first, because when you do the little things, then you get the bigger picture.
Okay,
I'll do the heading first.
you do the headings
Something
first.
easy.
But we'll have done them now.
Yeah.
So it'll be super
Yeah,
easy.
I know, but
Okay.
just get into it.
They're actually quite different from the ones I gave you before. So, okay, what else? I would start off with the things that I want to remove, because I don't want to edit stuff that I'm going to remove. Okay, because that's because I hate it. This friend of mine used to have this horrible expression. She used to say, I don't want to be like a dog that returns to its own vomits. I want to clean the stuff up, and then I want to carry on. So, okay. But that's me, okay? That doesn't mean artwork is another good way of starting. Where am I adding artwork? Aligning the numbers, big chunk done. It's quite a few marks. Got them out the way. Nothing mysterious about it. Okay, and while I'm doing my artwork, I should attend to my captions. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and do my captions really reflect what is being shown? Okay. And then, would you do some of the reference? Would you do some of the research for the reference, Michelle?
If I started with artwork, yes.
Yeah.
But then if I'm starting with artwork, then I'm going to finish artwork.
Okay.
That's just
No, that's fine. Anybody else have any ideas? And it's fine to start with headings. I don't like doing it. Always find some discrepancy at the end. But a lot of people start with that. Okay, especially when it's straightforward. Anything else? It's also fine to say, I want to find all the little mistakes and then I want to think about, because what does that do? That focuses you on the text. So starting off as you suggested, with the little mistakes and just reading through very carefully and slowly is also a good way to start. Right. So there's no right way. Read it, see what you think. Try a technique. If it doesn't work for you, grab it from another angle and get going. Okay, the big thing is to start exactly as you said. Okay. All right, so let's do this markup quickly.
So
and yeah, okay.
What about them?
Basically, and I'm just looking to see, I have discussed these things already. What about?
What about the headings? What do we want to look for?
We are just going to mark them out. I'm not asking you to do the markup. I'm saying although the assignment asks you to do the markup, I'm going to send you a formal letter saying I do not want you to do that aspect.
Okay.
Now it's just, I mean, fair is fair. You know what I'm saying? I can give you that. And then I can go, another 40 marks, but let's rather do it together now because I think it's a bit different from what we did before.
Okay.
Okay, so chapter 2 is going to be CHHD, right?
Yep.
Chapter head. Find out more.
Exercise.
Exercise, activity.
Yeah, so it could be anything as long as it's not A, B, C. Right? So I've called mine X, I'm calling them X, Y, Z for the special little things. But it could be anything. Right. So what are you choosing?
Can we just do X?
Yeah.
Yes, let's do X. Okay? We're calling
So
it X.
X for the
So I'm going from
Find out.
ABC, I'm going to the opposite end of the spectrum, just so that there's no confusion. Just to show that these are not alphabetical, but they are just others. I could call them MOQ, whatever. Doesn't matter. Okay, as long as my typesetter knows that this stands for that.
So X is for all the little exercises then.
X is all the find out mores.
Okay.
Yeah. So the first one is a chapter head, then this one is a flag heading, right? Because it's going to be a feature.
Okay. Flag header.
And it's going to have, usually,
Images.
a logo.
So flag headings is like bracket X.
Thank you. I'm just saying it because that's where it ends. Just so the typesetter sees where, whatever they do with that typographically, this is where it stops. Okay? Then it's just ordinary text. Then we've got artwork and caption, and those need to be fixed. But they basically are saying artwork, and then the right artworks, blah, blah, blah. Okay.
When you say
Okay.
fixed, you mean the actual physical text?
Just
and
the actual
not-
physical
not
text.
the-
It's a mess, but it's fine.
Yeah, not the
No, I don't want
brackety.
anything else.
What about the physical text?
No, so when
No.
she says fixed, she doesn't mean like make it a rounded bracket instead of a square bracket. She means like the actual text, what it says.
Fix that.
Fix
Yeah.
it.
So what it refers to?
Yeah, so
Okay.
the numbering.
So this person here, in this one, has done what a lot of people do. Instead of having angle brackets, they've got square brackets. It's fine. Okay.
Should
Please
we,
don't change all of these.
so I was just wondering, should we just remain consistent? So
Yes.
should we maybe just do square bracket throughout the whole thing for all the headings then?
And captions.
You can.
For all the headings.
I've done mine in square brackets.
Oh.
Because that's the way I worked for quite a while. But then when I went to uni, so this person said, it's angle brackets. And I haven't done angle brackets in years. It actually really makes no difference as long as the typesetter sees that it's, yeah.
Can I ask? I know it's like silly, but so when you say artwork 2.2 and then you close the brackets, is that bracket not supposed to close at the end of
Yes, it is supposed to close at the end of, okay. So that is not a silly question, that's fine. So artwork 2.2, take out that second square bracket and put it at the end. And then what do I need there? In the caption, remember? Full stop. Okay. And then my next caption, also full stop. So the top one, 2.1, caption full stop, 2.2, caption takes a full stop. I'm not marking it the wrong place. Okay. All right, what is a current?
Is that A?
Yeah, A. Okay, like huge big heading. Different currents for different folks. Okay, ignore the title now.
Have B because you're talking about currents.
Yeah.
Is it B?
It's not a different topic.
Is it B?
It seems related to currents, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess.
Okay. So if you look at this kind of book, what are you going to find?
Oh no, they all have the same size.
All the headings are going to be like more or less the same size.
So it's an
Okay.
So I would just make this another A.
Okay.
It's another big fat topic. Okay, like that kind of stuff. All right. Surface and deep currents.
so A?
Yeah.
Okay, it could be A, or if if you're really wanting to do a hierarchical number, because you've mentioned that currents are surface and deep, okay,
Oh, so
if you wanted, I would make it an A, but you could, if you, it depends on what you want at the end of the day. Remember that you're going to be working with a designer,
just thinking.
but I have not given you a design.
Okay.
Okay, so A actually works fine. Or if you really, if it's a book that's a little bit more hierarchical than a lot of these, yes.
When we do our final assignment, do we have to then put these?
I'd love you to, just so that it matches my description, but it's not important. Okay. No, I am not. I'm doing it now, okay, because I want to discuss how these headings work. Sometimes, okay, so it would depend how hierarchical the text is. Okay, so it could be an A or it could also be a B because surface and deep currents have been mentioned specifically. Next one, surface currents could be another A or
I would put it as B actually because the first one, if you make surface and deep currents an
Yeah.
A, then it should be little.
Yeah, because then there's surface currents and then there's
yes,
Alright.
yes.
Yeah, that's fair, yeah. So B for deep
Yeah.
currents as well?
Yeah.
And deep currents as well, A or B. Currents in the world oceans, we're now moving on, so really definitely an
A.
A. Did you know?
It's
Y.
like a flag heading, right?
Okay, so did you know why? Since we're using X, Y, Z,
Yeah.
it's another flag heading, huh? Okay. Danger, stranger danger.
Is that so? That's the largest conveyor belt belongs to. Did you know?
Would that be a B?
Was that part of
Or no, that would be a...
I must say, if you look at all the information in there, I would also just put it in a box, but I would. Like, it could be an A, easily.
So the did you know as an A?
Stranger danger
Oh no, stranger danger.
So
is
you
an
would make,
A. I would make it an A. I would just put it in a box.
wouldn't that be a flag heading if you're putting it in a box?
It could also be a flag heading. But if you look at the way a lot of these things are done, they just put it in a box, but they use the same A heading.
So if we put
Okay.
A heading, then do we just say start box?
Yeah, is that a
Yes.
symbol
Yes.
for
Because it does
box?
say inbox text. I think you know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
does it?
Yeah, it
Yes.
says start.
Start box text.
But that's fine, isn't it? There's only one of these. So, start box, stop box. Okay? So, if they've decided that they're going to, like these big boxes with lots of extra text and stuff, they're giving it their own headings, then it could be double Z or whatever you want to make it. Okay? But it could also be an A, and in many of these kinds of books it is. Because it's just like, hey, your attention's being called here, and here, and here, and it's like everything's interesting. Do you know what I'm saying? So, or not interesting, depending on how it was written. But that's the way it's designed. It calls to you. So none of it's kind of more important. You've got some big ideas and some smaller illustrations, but they're all given. The whole idea, I think, for the reader is to unpack interesting informations of different kinds. It's like it's a bit of a box of treasures, if you like. That's the thought, I think. So, in a way, there isn't that strict hierarchy that you find in that, like there was in that other text that I gave you. Okay, very different. Okay, effects of currents.
A.
A. Did you know? Again, is a
Fly heading.
Y.
Oh, so the Y did you know?
Okay, shipwrecks and lighthouses. Again, it's box text. Again, it could be its own thing, or an A would work fine there as well.
But then it doesn't. Oh, it does, hang on.
Yeah. Find out more.
X.
X. Influence of currents on our coastal areas.
A.
A. Colbing-Wheeler currents.
Same.
A.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
In a strictly hierarchical text,
that would be B.
that
Yeah.
would be B. And then, yeah. Effects of winds on the Benguela.
B. I would put it a B. it's the
Effects of the benguela on the land along the coast?
B.
So wait, did we say that we're agreeing that that's B?
Not necessarily.
I think
For
I
me,
like
it also works as an A,
I don't know if that.
but it also works as a B. Okay, it depends on how your text is going to look at the end of the day, what your design is going to be like. Which is why I've taken this out as a question, because actually it's dependent on too many things. Warm Agulhas current,
A.
A. Effects of the winds on the Agulhas and on shipping, A or B. Okay. Effects of the Agulhas on the eastern coastal areas, A or B. Can you top this?
Z.
Z. Yeah. And here you've got lots of headings and subheadings, and you're going to have to decide how you want that to look. Okay, I'm not going to tell you. Find out more is again an X. Coastal economy.
Wait, sorry. We missed
Make a decision.
I said the headings are a mess. You're going to have to fix them. Okay. The wonders of nature, the wonders of names, the
But do
bubble
we have
graph
to
chart.
fix them? Just a query, because we're not being marked on it. Do we have to?
Yes. Yes. You're not marked on the markup. You're still marked on the headings and the text that is there. You've got two headings, one under the other. You've got three things. You've got a can you top this, and you've got the wonders of nature. Okay, so you need to tidy that up a bit. Okay. Page 9, find out more is an X. The coastal economy. Big new title, definitely an A. Find out more, again, is an X. Just go back to page 9.
Fishing.
The coastal economy. Okay, so you've got here a heading that says fishing. So,
Oh, I thought that was a
Okay.
glossary term. Oh,
Huh?
okay, no.
it's not a glossary thing. It's a heading and it's called a shoulder head. Okay, and shoulder heads are things that you use very often in reports. Michelle, I'm sure you use these headings. They're very common in reports. Okay, so where is our next shoulder head here?
Tourism?
Yeah, tourism needs to be bolded as another shoulder head.
Whoa.
Do we mark those up as well or something?
No,
Oh, you don't?
I would just know. What you need to know about them is that your full stop afterwards is also bold. Okay, so fishing, full stop, bold, tourism. Okay. Then, okay, so in the middle of page 10 you've got X, we'll find out more. Then you've got these funny headings. Any thoughts on what you could do with them? Because now this is an awkward thing that doesn't really fit into anything.
Marine transport.
But also, now it's all, the first letter is capitalized where the others aren't.
Where's this?
Marine transport and manufacturing.
Yeah. What are you talking about?
And the other A heading.
Capital T is the T is capitalized and the M is capitalized. Whereas
Yes.
in other headings, it's not like that.
Yes, so what's the style?
Gotta check the
I'm
house
saying
style.
let's fix the style.
Yeah, no, you must. You're going to have to edit the headings for style. Yes, your style is sentence case, right? Okay, but that's not what I'm looking at. I'm looking at these marine transport and manufacturing, offshore oil and gas exploration, and aquaculture. Remember I said to you some of the text is a bit too long-winded, you could simplify it, okay? Hint, hint. And then, could you maybe turn these into shoulder heads? If you shorten them.
Yes, I think so.
Definitely aquaculture.
If you shorten them all, they might all work as shoulder heads. which works well in that section, because then you've got consistency. But maybe not. Maybe you want to make them B heads. Okay. Or you want to make them A heads. Whew. Okay, can you see why I took that out? Yeah, very different story. Okay, based essentially on the look of the typography as decided with the designer. And we haven't looked at that side of things. We're doing an edit. Within reason. Okay. Everybody happy about this?
Yeah, quite informative. This was
What does this teach you though about markup?
It is very meticulous work, requires patience.
Sometimes you can't do a markup if you haven't yet done the design. Okay, so you know how you learn, edit, okay. Sometimes before you can mark things up for your typesetter, you need to have a design. Which is why, what do you send to the designer? A representative sample of the book. A representative sample of all the design features that might be involved. Then you get them back from the designer, everybody looks at it and says, this design is brilliant, or this design is revolting. And then, only then, once it's approved, can you finalize markup. Okay. It might even be the case with a textbook as simple as the one that we were looking at for the other markup.
Okay. So no more than 16 hours is your recommendation?
So, I still think 16 hours. I'm saying 16 hours because you need to go through it more than once. Doing different things each time.
Is this for us to keep?
Yeah, you can keep it. Anybody have a thought? Anybody have a thought that they might want to do the plain language thing first? Why not?
Right.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't want to be a dog visiting its vomit.
No, that some people do. Okay. But Danielle just said that she likes to start at one end and finish at the other. And that's fine.
I think as you go, you eventually change little things because you realize something else isn't right. So you kept something for the first page, but then you realize, actually it's too much here, it doesn't look nice.
Well, I think that is...
From one side to the other.
Okay, I think that is a perfectly fine way of working through the manuscript, is deciding to do the plain languaging first. And the reason I say that is that there's quite a bit of scope for it. I don't expect you to pick up everything, but there is scope for plain language work in this edit. And if there is quite a lot of scope for it, maybe you should look at it as a possibility. Have you all looked at your assignments?
Yes. The group assignments.
Well, the group assignments, have you had a chance? Do you need to keep them and bring them back later? Okay. You did very well, especially in the time allocated.
Well, it makes it easier. I think we work together.
Okay.
So it's kind of,
When you okay. Let me leave this. When you deposit your assignment with Mo, please pick up the little chocolate I will have left there for you. I wanted to bring them today, but it was not possible.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
You worked hard.
Final wave.
Final goodbyes.